And I would just like to start off by saying I turned the fan off and put my hair down in 94-degree weather to get good audio quality and visual for you. So please like and subscribe. Today, we are ranking every personality test I could find for free on the internet, which is 13 personality tests. I made my own little ranking chart. That will be the first thing I explain. Well, no, the second thing I explain, because the first thing I explain is that you might be wondering, what's my deal? Because last time I posted, it was a travel vlog. And this time, it's whatever this is. My deal is called ADHD. And this YouTube channel doesn't make me money or anything. So this is my outlet, alright? Stick around or don't stick around, but it's gonna be a little weird. So first thing I want to do, well, I guess it is second thing now. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is explain my ranking system. So I am ranking all of these tests from S to F. S being the best, F being the worst. S stands for super. I wanted it to be supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but I couldn't fit that in the square on the chart, so we're just going with super. A is for awesome, B is for better than most, C is for can't complain. I absolutely can complain and I will complain, but I couldn't think of anything else for C. D is for don't bother, E is for everything sucks, and F is for fire. Burn it in a fire. I feel like those are all pretty self-explanatory categories, so I will not be explanatorying them. If you feel like I have not sufficiently explanatoried them to you, it will be shown on screen, and you can look at it with your eyeballs. Unless you're blind? Sorry? I should let's move on. Let's move on. So, the first test I took was the MBTI test, the most official looking version of the Myers-Briggs test. The website was called Myers-Briggs, the test was called Myers-Briggs. I was like, that's a very official looking test. Let's start with that. Start on a good note. Turns out, it wasn't a good note. You might be surprised that I ranked this very, very low on my chart because you've probably heard of the Myers-Briggs test. You're probably like, I was expecting that to be very high up on the chart, and you'd love it, like I love it, or maybe you've never heard of it. It's. I shouldn't annoy people who are voluntarily watching me. Anyway, you might be surprised that it ranked quite low, but that is because I didn't actually end up getting to take this test because it wanted to charge me $60. I don't have $60. And if I did have $60, I wouldn't be spending it on this. And I would not advise anybody to spend $60 on a fake online personality test, of all things. That's just a bad financial decision. So this went in F for fire, burn it in a fire, which is kind of counterintuitive because the reason it's an F is because I don't have money to burn in a fire. Which would be equivalent to, you get the joke. If you don't get the joke, then pretend it was funny. Sorry, there's a gnat. Now for the second test that I took and ranked. This one I did actually take, by the way. It's not a fake out like the last one. I was such a in that last clip 2 minutes ago. How could I? So for the second test I took was an astrology test. Because while it's not really a personality test, like it doesn't ask you questions about your personality, it does claim to know your personality. So I figured it was close enough. The main thing I learned from the astrology test is that I should have checked the website that I chose before putting my birthday in and like getting my answer. Because on second watch of the footage I took of taking that test, it's super clear that the website is janky as hell. The grammar is awful, there's a bunch of misspellings, it looks like it's from the 90s. I really should have known better, and that's on me, okay? That's my own fault. So I'm a Scorpio, and according to the test, that makes me sensual, attractive, and an unrepentant sinner. That's a quote. That's a quote. Unrepentant sinner. I did not make that up. I'll put the footage in. I'll splice that in. That is an actual thing it said, word for word. Another thing that bothered me about this test was that it had three different result options for Scorpio man, Scorpio woman, and Scorpio child. Do children just get a gender specific new personality assigned to them when they turn 18? Is that what this test is implying? Because they were really different answers based on what category you were in. So if I had taken this test when I was 17, does that mean that my personality shifted completely on my 18th birthday? So that this online test could say that I'm sexy? Which, thank you, but also, no. Anyway, very inaccurate, highly amusing. I had a lot of fun taking this one, but it did sort of reaffirm my bias against astrology, if I'm being honest. I also ranked this in F for fire, burn it in a fire, because even though it was entertaining, it did straight up call me an unrepentant sinner. Okay, now for test number 3, and this was an actual personality test. So I have notes, and I have them on my phone because I am a professional. This one was called the 5-minute personality test, and I get it. It's like, ooh, do this in 5 minutes, learn about yourself, all of that. It actually took me 7 minutes. So I would just like to say false advertising. All right, moving on. I did genuinely crack up at some of these questions. There were some questions that were straight up like, are you a sociopath? Do you want to torture animals? Like, what? Does anybody admit to that on an online personality test? And supposedly, this test is supposed to be a mix of three other tests: the Dark Triad test, the Myers-Briggs test, and the Five Traits test. And I can see where the Dark Triad test and the Myers-Briggs test come in, but not where the Big Five Traits test come in. And I will cover all of those later, except the Dark Triad test, because it was almost the exact same as this test. But the Dark Triad test tests for narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellism. And the Myers Briggs test we've discussed gives you one of 16 Myers Briggs personality types. The Big Five trait test gives you percentages of how much of each trait you express, basically. It did give me a Myers Briggs type, and it also told me that I am not a narcissist, a psychopath, and I also do not have Machiavellian tendencies. I wonder if anybody learns from this random online test that they have psychopathy. That would be a fun time, you know? A little bit of a existential spiral as a treat. So, my problem with this test is mainly that it's three tests, but worse. It takes all three of them, it takes some stuff from them, and it makes it worse. The answer was not very accurate. I'm not saying I'm a psychopath. I'm saying I also took 16 personalities, which is a Myers-Briggs test, and got a completely different answer. Because this one gave me ENFP campaigner. And I've taken the 16 personalities Myers-Briggs test before. I've taken it now 4 times. And every time I have taken it, I've got an INTJT, which is almost the exact opposite type of ENFP. So this does not fill me with confidence in the accuracy of this test. This was also on a website with a lot of different personality tests, and when you are hosting that many personality tests, it does make me question how accurate each of them are, or if you're just adding filler in. I ended up ranking this in D for don't bother. If you're looking for a personality test to take, don't take this one. Don't bother with it. That's where the title comes from. The next test I took, I think we're on test number 4 now, but I might be counting wrong. is the Rorschach test. You might have heard of it or seen it in like every single movie that has a therapy scene ever, because it's the ink blot test, the test with the ink blots where you say what you see in the ink blot and then therapist goes, very interesting, and then takes notes and all that. My biggest issue with the Rorschach test that I took online, it was multiple choice. So I kept seeing things that were not in the multiple choice answers. So I just had to pick either the closest one or just say that I hadn't seen anything, which, kind of feels like cheating because it's not the answer that I like want to put in or I want to pick. I got normal, so I don't, again, question the accuracy of this test, because I'm special, but that wasn't a choice. So whatever. There was a section called normal, and there was a section called healthy and well balanced. And I was a normal instead of healthy and well balanced, which makes sense based on the entirety of my meanness. But I've been in therapy for like over a decade. If I'm not healthy and well balanced by now, there's no hope. There is no hope. I think I might read too much fan fiction to ever be healthy and well balanced, if I'm being completely honest. There was one question. I will put this on screen if I can find it. There was one question where one of the multiple choice answers was a certain reproductive organ. Enough people on this test answered a certain reproductive organ for that to be in the multiple choice answers. And I love humanity. Thank you so much. That absolutely made my day. I ended up ranking the Rorschach test in D for don't bother. It's not accurate, it's an outdated therapy tool, and it's not really a personality test as much as it is testing you for disturbed patterns of thinking. But it was also really fun to take, which is why it's not lower. And the a certain reproductive organ thing did crack me up. The test is called See My Personality Test. Some of these tests have cool names, some of these tests have mediocre names, some of these tests have lame names. I'd put this in lame. Do better. Also, this test claims to be highly accurate and very scientific, which immediately set off alarm bells in my head. Because anytime something says that, but doesn't have any actual PhDs listed in development or peer reviewing or any of that, really makes me doubtful. Now, something that I liked about this test, I know, rare treat, me not complaining, was that some of the questions were scenario based instead of abstract. Something I've noticed in taking a lot of these personality tests is that the questions tend to be very abstract, and some of them are even how do other people view you? Or what do other people think about this aspect of you? And that's stupid, because I don't know that. I don't know what other people think of me. Someone else should be taking a test on my behalf if those are the questions that you're asking. So, this test having some scenario based questions like, do you sympathize with the homeless? Is a much better question than, do other people think you're generous? Just, I really appreciated that. Because I can pretty confidently say I do sympathize with the homeless. It's the reason I don't carry around cash anymore, is because I kept giving it all away. And I don't have enough money to do that, okay? I have $20 in my bank account right now and no job. So, just a full-time student with an unpaid internship. Woo! Yeah, so I can confidently say I sympathize with homeless people, but I don't know if other people think I'm a generous person. I did think some of the results were almost comically incorrect. For example, that I am more interested in fact than fiction. Baby girl, my dude, my bro, my buddy, my baby girl. I am on Archive of Our Own for hours at a time, every day. We are so far past the point of more interested in fact than fiction. We are well into the brain rot area. I got the artisan as my answer. I think it's cool that this test has names. However, a lot of the other tests also have names and they're all different names and it gets very confusing. Something I liked about this test was that it has celebrity comparisons. Hi, Julia Roberts. But I don't think Julia Roberts has ever taken this test. So how do you have celebrity comparisons? Did you just like go through her interview questions? What intern had to do that? This was probably the shortest test. It only took me a minute and a half to take. Again, makes me doubt its accuracy. And lastly, it said that I'm modest. I find that funny. Me and my mom have this inside joke where I'll say something outrageous like how I'm the most beautiful creature on this planet. And my mom will say, "You're so modest." And I'm like, "Yes, modesty is my best quality. I should get it on a t-shirt." So I love that I have more ammo now to use in that scenario. Thank you, random online test. This went in D for don't bother. It's not a good personality test. It's just not. Alright, now I'm done. The next test on my list is the 16 personalities test, which is the version of the Myers-Briggs I was able to take for free because, again, I refused to pay $60 for a fake online personality test. I got INTJT, and I would like to be completely transparent. I have taken this exact test on this exact website before. I took it 3 times before I took it for this video. I've taken it roughly every 2 years over the last 8 years, a total of 4 times. I've gotten the same answer every time, which does make me a bit more confident in its accuracy. However, the Myers-Briggs in general is not a scientifically backed test, and in fact has been denounced by the scientific community, especially in the last couple of years. So, if you feel like the answer you get resonates with you, there's nothing wrong with that. Take it as a suggestion, not as a fact. That's kind of my best advice. Because I do like a lot of the advice that I got from my answer of INTJT. Now, does the fact that I did an unofficial study over the course of 8 years on the accuracy of this test perhaps, perhaps validate this test's analysis of my personality? Maybe. I'm not gonna say definitely, but maybe. I personally really like this test. It was a little boring to take, but I think because of the really in-depth answer it gives you and the really in-depth advice it gives you, it is worth it to take this test if you are taking personality tests to learn more about yourself, which is why I ranked this an A for awesome. It's not an S for super because I don't think it's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, but it is pretty awesome. Why did nobody tell me my part looked janky? Ugh. Now I gotta fix that. Fix it later. I'm lazy. Okay, next test. The next test I took was on Psych Central. I believe it was called, How Do Other People See You? Again, really lame name, long and complicated. Just come up with something catchy. Use someone's last name. As long as it's a cool last name. Anyway, other than the lame name, let's get on to my actual notes. This was a really short test, which does make me doubt its accuracy. The questions were all really vague. Some of them were really weird questions that have nothing to do with anything, like, what's my favorite color? It's purple, by the way. My favorite color is purple. It was very different from the other tests I've taken so far, just not in a good way. It broke up the monotony a bit, but not in a good way. Again, I cannot vouch for the accuracy of these results because I don't know how other people view me. I guess that's the purpose of this test, but unless I get someone to corroborate that answer, I don't actually know if it's true or not. I got the loyal friend. This really does kind of feel like a nothing test. It was forgettable. It didn't teach me anything about myself. So I feel really meh about this. This one also gave me modest, though, so that's more ammo against my mom. It wasn't bad, it wasn't boring. I don't think it was accurate, but I also don't know. So I put this in C for can't complain, even though I did just spend 2 minutes complaining. Perhaps the title of that category is not completely accurate, but if you can come up with a better thing for the C category, go ahead and put it in the comments. I'd be happy to hear your suggestions. The next test I took is the Hogwarts house test, because I needed a break. I did not take the official Pottermore Hogwarts house test because I do not want to support J.K. Rowling. This one really was just for fun, because I don't know if I would classify it as a personality test. However, it does claim to know aspects of your personality based on your test. So I guess it essentially is a personality test, just not a very good one. It's only 4 answers. Speaking of, I got Slytherin, which is pretty cool. My biggest problem with the answer is that I don't think I'm cunning. I can barely get through regular social scenarios without, like, shutting down. Yeah, I didn't realize until about halfway through this test that I don't really know enough about Harry Potter to answer some of these questions. Some of them were like based on like what's your favorite character and like what's your favorite event and like all of this, and it's like, oh my god. I have not been a part of the Harry Potter fandom since I was literally like 9 or 10. And I know I have a baby face, but that means it's been about 11 or 12 years. Also, some of the multiple choice questions were kind of weird. Like, this one also had a what's your favorite color, but the answers were very strange. Again, my favorite color is purple. Purple was not an answer you could choose. But you know what was an answer you could choose for your favorite color? Bronze. Bronze isn't a color, it's a metal finish. Okay? That should not have been on the list. Purple should have been there instead. There wasn't even a lavender. I think I had to answer blue. It made me very sad. And it also made me question if there were better personality tests out there. And then I'm like, I wonder if there's an AI personality test. With how many things have AI now for no reason, maybe an AI personality test could be like a chat test that's trained by psychologists or something. That would be cool. And I did find one. For free. So I took it, and that's next. Oh wait, I ranked this in C for can't complain. That's important. I forgot to say it. I ranked the Hogwarts house test in C for can't complain. Now, on to the next test. I didn't think the timer would go down that quickly. I also have cookies. That's what is happening between scenes, in case you were wondering. It's cookies and water. All right. The next test is called Humanality. It's an AI test. I was disappointed because there really was no AI integration on this test. The only AI integration I could find was once you get your answer, it gives you a list of recommended friends based on your personality test. And recommendations are AI. It's AI recommendations. You see them on Amazon, on most websites. It's not a special thing anymore because you can find it in so many places. So I feel like that shouldn't count for making this an AI test, just having an AI recommendation system at the end. There was no other AI integration, and when you're looking for an AI personality test, you want it to be an AI personality test. This was like all the other personality tests, except really disappointing because I was expecting more. You might be wondering what makes me qualified to know that there's no AI involved in this test. And actually, I'm getting a degree in computers, and I'm taking a lot of AI courses. So I guess I'm not that qualified, but I'm more qualified than some people. But it wasn't what I was expecting or what I wanted. It wasn't cool. And it also it also made me put my email in before it would give me my answer. I already went on my email and blocked them, but that is sketchy as hell, which is why humanality is an E for everything sucks, because everything about it sucked the life out of me. That was not a good joke, but I'm not taking it back. You're just gonna have to live with that, and so am I. I think we're done here. Psych, we have 4 more tests to take. Buckle in, biatches. Alright, the next test is called the Big Five Traits Test. And I'm gonna be honest, it was really boring. According to my very minimal amount of research, this is the most scientifically backed test of all the ones I took. And if not the most, then definitely up there in the top 2 or 3. So I do respect that, but it was also really boring. Clearly, a lot of the other tests use this as a base, which means by the time I got to actually taking this test, I had already seen the questions like 4 or 5 different times. And so the experience of taking this test was like not fun. It wasn't fun. I think it did ask some new questions. It did ask some helpful questions that I think might have made it more accurate. Like it asked age and gender, etc. And the way that you are socialized does affect your personality. So I do appreciate that they asked that. I don't know if they used it for your answer, because I don't see how you would use that in comparative results unless you're adding some sort of like weighed percentage based on whatever answers you give. I think it might have been more of a survey situation though. Since I've answered the same question so many times, I feel like I've answered it differently since the questions are so abstract. Like, do people like you? Today, my answer to that would be maybe. Yesterday, my answer to that would be definitely not. Everybody hates me. The world's on fire. And the day before that, it'd be like, everybody loves me. I'm that bitch. It changes. These tests rely too much on you having good self confidence, which I don't have. This test ended up in B for better than most. It is better than most, but it is also B for boring. Boring, basic, still better than most, though. That's all I have to say about it, because it's forgettable. The next test is the Enneagram. This was my favorite test, actually. The Enneagram was my favorite test, which means I probably should have saved it for last, but I didn't think of that until now, and I don't want to re record this again. This one has 9 personality types, but which did make me skeptical at first, but once I finished the test and I looked up my answer that I got, which was 5, I got type 5. I also lean towards type 8, which means that I am currently growing and becoming healthier, which is nice. Type 5 is called the investigator. It's the intense cerebral type. I'm perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated. I would say that's all true, except secretive, because now I'm posting this publicly on the internet. But before now, I say that that's true. It also told me that I am untrusting, unsocial, and strange, which I did already know about myself, but thanks, test. Really helping a girl out. Gotta appreciate it. The advice I got was really great. I had to go to a second resource to find advice because on the website I took the test, the advice was hidden behind a paywall, and I don't have money. But this does seem to be a relatively popular personality test because when I looked up my type, I got a lot of information for free. This test made me feel the most seen, absolutely. I think this was the most accurate one I took by far. The answers I got from this test genuinely made me feel like someone picked through my brain and like looked around and was like, "Oh, yes, this is your personality, your strengths and weaknesses, your fears, your hopes, how you interact with other people." It felt eerily accurate. You get a type and then you also get whatever type you have as the second most is what you're leaning towards, and that's a whole nother personality. Most of them even have names. So it has way more answers than just 9. I'm not gonna do the math because I just finished calculus last term and honestly my brain is broken. It's the only one that ranked an S for super, and I am pretty confident in putting it there. If you're going to take a personality test on this list, take the Enneagram. I held out for longer than I thought I would with the hair down and the fan off, but I can't. Next test is the DISC personality test. My biggest problem with this test is that it calls itself a personality test. This is not a personality test. This is a work style test. And for a work style test, it's a really good test. If you want to know your work style and how you are in workplace culture and all of that, this is a good test. But it's not a personality test. I liked how a lot of the questions, specifically the questions on the last page, were completely situational. It's how would you act in this situation? Those are super easy to answer because you can just pull on your past experiences. So I did enjoy that. And it does feel like it makes my answer more accurate because I feel like my responses are more accurate. As a work style test, having only 4 answers is fine because it gives you like a scale and how you ranked on each one of the categories, and that's fine for a work style test. For a personality test, having only 4 answers is insane. There are 7 billion people on this planet. There are more than 4 personalities, I promise you. I got the answer drive, which means I take charge to get things done, I make decisions, and I take action. I would say that's pretty accurate. Sometimes. I'd say that's pretty accurate sometimes. That's pretty accurate when I'm in a okay mood and I can focus. Again, I do genuinely have ADHD, which means I experience executive dysfunction along with a host of other symptoms. I've found ways to work with my disability, but it is still a disability, and I feel like that should have affected the answer. This one got put in D for don't bother because it's not a personality test, so don't bother. If you're looking for a work style test, I'd put this in B for better than most. But since we're not ranking work style tests, it's in D. Last test, last test. I just scared a bird. So this test is a career aptitude test. And I know I was just complaining about the last test being a work style test, and this is about personality tests. But I decided to take a career aptitude test because a lot of the personality tests gave me career suggestions. So I thought it would be a good idea to like cross-reference that. First impressions of this career aptitude test. It's okay. The questions, again, it's kind of boring to take. These tests get really, really boring and repetitive after a while. This one was a little different because it was about career, but based on the questions, it was still essentially a personality test. I got innovator with humanitarian as a close second. And for jobs, I got creative with thinking as a close second, which means any job I have should be a creative job that also requires a lot of logical thinking and reasoning. I think that that is also pretty accurate. I am in school to be a computer programmer. My eventual goal is to either be a systems architect or uh, a game dev. All right, I was a little worried about including this test, but I do think, given the answers it gave me, that it does fit. The top suggestion it gave me as a job is architect. Computer science was not anywhere on the list that fit me. So at first I was like, oh, it's telling me that I am getting the wrong degree and going into the wrong career. But actually, I do think once I gave a little more thought onto what I want to do with my degree and what my career goals are, that it is pretty aligned with the answers I got here. I ended up putting this in C for can't complain. If this were a ranking about career tests, this would be in super. But again, it's really not. Alright, I think that is all I have to say about all of these tests. Thank you for watching! The next video should be out next Friday. If it's not, I'm not dead. It'll be out the Friday after. I probably just encountered even more filming issues. So I will see you next Friday. Sorry, it's not see you next Tuesday or next Thursday. That would be a lot funnier. But I'll see you next Friday. And thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. If you actually got to the end of this video, think about liking and subscribing. Put a dolphin emoji in the comments to show that you got to the end of this video. I like dolphins. Oh, that was a good one. Damn. All right, that first one, that's like a 9 out of 10. I'm an adult. My footage keeps getting deleted from my computer, so I have to record this again. If you want to argue with me in the comments, go for it. Boost me in the algorithm. Thank you so much. I also really love photography, and it's a hobby of mine that I would like to monetize eventually because we live in a culture where you have to monetize your hobbies to survive in the economy. I'm not gonna continue down that road of thinking.